Once upon a time in a faraway land, there was a poor woodcutter named Ali Baba. Ali Baba had a wife and 2 children, a boy and a girl, and they lived together in a small cottage on the edge of the forest. It was not easy for Ali Baba to make ends meet, but he worked hard every day cutting wood and selling it in the nearby village. He was a good and honest man, but he often worried about how he would provide for his family. One day while working in the forest, Ali Baba heard a noise that made him stop in his tracks. It was a sound he had never heard before, and it seemed to be coming from inside one of the caves in the mountain. Curious, Ali Baba decided to investigate. He approached the cave and listened carefully. To his surprise, he could hear the sound of voices inside. Ali Baba hesitated for a moment, wondering whether he should go inside or not. But his curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to take a peek. As he moved closer to the cave, he heard the voices more clearly. They were speaking in a language that Ali Baba did not understand, but he could make out some of the words. He heard the words treasure and stolen and gold. Intrigued, Ali Baba crept closer, and soon he was able to see inside the cave. What he saw inside the cave was beyond his wildest imagination. There, in the flickering light of the torches, Ali Baba could see 40 men. They were dressed in fine clothes, and their faces were covered with black masks. In front of them lay piles of gold, silver, and jewels, and they were counting the loot. Ali Baba couldn't believe his eyes. He had stumbled upon a group of thieves, and they had found a massive haul of treasure. For a moment, Ali Baba was frozen in his tracks. He couldn't believe what he had seen. He thought about running away, but he couldn't help but feel curious. Who were these thieves? Where had they gotten all this treasure? And why were they counting it in such detail? Ali Baba wanted to know more, but he also knew that he shouldn't be there. As he watched, the thieves finished counting the treasure, and they started to divide it among themselves. Each thief took a bag of gold and jewels and put them on their backs. There were so many bags that some of the thieves had to take 2. Ali Baba watched as they prepared to leave. He knew that he should call out to them, but he was afraid of what they might do. Just as the thieves were about to leave, one of them turned around and spotted Ali Baba. All the other thieves turned around and saw him too. For a moment, there was silence. Ali Baba was afraid that they might attack him, but the thieves just started to laugh. They laughed and joked, and they taunted Ali Baba, telling him that he was too late. But one of the thieves, who seemed to be the leader of the pack, stepped forward. He looked at Ali Baba and said something in his own language. The other thieves stopped laughing and looked at Ali Baba intently. Then the leader of the thieves spoke again, and this time his voice was softer. Ali Baba couldn't understand what the thieves were saying, but he could sense that they were talking about him. He was afraid, but he couldn't help but wonder what they were going to do. Was he going to be attacked? Would he be killed? Or maybe they would let him live and take his possessions. After talking amongst themselves, the leader of the thieves addressed Ali Baba once again. He told Ali Baba that he could have the treasure if he helped them carry it out of the cave. Of course, Ali Baba was suspicious, but he thought that he had nothing to lose. He agreed to help the thieves carry the treasure out of the cave. The thieves were delighted. They gave Ali Baba some sacks of gold and jewels and told him to follow them. Ali Baba did as he was told, and soon he was walking alongside the thieves through the forest. He didn't know where they were going, but he trusted that they would lead him to safety. After walking for a while, the thieves stopped in a clearing. They looked at Ali Baba and the sacks of treasure, and then they started to run away. Ali Baba was confused, but he didn't have time to think about it. He quickly grabbed the sacks of treasure and ran after the thieves. He ran as fast as he could, but the thieves were too quick for him. They disappeared into the trees, and Ali Baba was left alone in the clearing with the treasure. For a moment, Ali Baba couldn't believe what had happened. He had just escaped from 40 thieves, and he had all this treasure to show for it. He looked at the sacks and smiled. This was more money than he would earn in a lifetime of cutting wood. He could use the money to buy food for his family, clothes, a new house. He could give some to the poor and still have plenty left over. But as Ali Baba looked at the treasure, he couldn't shake off the feeling that he had done something wrong. He had agreed to help the thieves carry the treasure out of the cave, and now he had taken it for himself. Was that right? Should he give the treasure back to its rightful owners? Ali Baba struggled with his conscience, but he couldn't bring himself to give the treasure away. He had worked hard to escape the thieves, and he didn't want to risk being caught with them again. Instead, Ali Baba decided to hide the treasure in his cottage. He buried it in the backyard, and then he went inside to think things through. Ali Baba paced back and forth inside his cottage, trying to decide what he should do. On one hand, he felt guilty about taking the treasure from the thieves. On the other hand, he knew that he could use the money to help his family and others. Ali Baba was torn, but eventually he decided to return the treasure to its rightful owners. He knew that it was the right thing to do, and he couldn't live with himself if he didn't try. Ali Baba gathered the treasure and set out to find the thieves. He didn't know where they were, but he hoped that he would find them. As Ali Baba walked through the forest, he came across a small hut. He knocked on the door and a woman opened it. Ali Baba explained his situation to the woman and she invited him in. The woman was a wise old woman who lived in the forest, and she knew a lot about the thieves. According to the old woman, the thieves were hiding out in a cave in the mountains. She also told Ali Baba that there was only one way to get to the cave, and it was through a secret passageway in her hut. Ali Baba thanked the old woman for her help and set off to find the cave. The journey to the cave was long and dangerous, but Ali Baba was determined to return the treasure. Finally, he came to a clearing and saw the cave in front of him. Taking a deep breath, Ali Baba walked towards the cave and disappeared inside. The cave was dark and dank, and Ali Baba could barely see anything. He called out to the thieves, and they came out of the shadows. When they saw Ali Baba, they were surprised. They had thought that they had gotten away with the treasure, and now here was Ali Baba with more treasure. Ali Baba explained that he had found the treasure in the cave and that he wanted to return it. The thieves were ashamed of themselves for stealing the treasure, and they thanked Ali Baba for returning it. From that day on, Ali Baba was known throughout the land as a man of honesty and integrity. He had done the right thing by returning the treasure, and he had set an example for others to follow. And so, thanks to Ali Baba's honesty, the treasure was returned to its rightful owners, and the thieves learned a valuable lesson about the importance of doing the right thing. If you liked this story, don't forget to like the video. Also, share your ideas for future videos in the comments below.